I'm 49 years old. That isn't very old, I know. Not the way people usually mean it. But somewhere in the last year, the shape of my life became clear in a way it never had before. Clear and quiet, and a little frightening. For most of my life, I thought I understood what mattered. I was wrong about that. Not completely wrong, but wrong enough that it cost me things I can't get back. It took me 39 years to understand it, and once I did, there was nothing left to fix. So I'll tell you, not because it changes anything for me now, it doesn't, but maybe hearing it sooner matters. When I was younger, life felt wide. That's the only word I can think of. Wide. At 22, I believed time was generous. I thought life stretched ahead like a long road you could wander down slowly, stopping whenever you felt like it. There was no urgency in anything. My father used to wake up early every morning. 5 o'clock, sometimes earlier. I'd hear him in the kitchen making coffee before the sun came up. The smell would drift down the hallway. I hated that smell back then. It meant the day had started before I was ready. I'd stay in bed listening to the clink of his spoon against the mug, the sound of the front door opening when he left for work. He worked at a small hardware store, nothing important, just shelves and tools and customers who needed screws or paint or advice. I don't think he ever complained about it, but I also never asked him if he liked it. At 22, you don't ask questions like that. You assume there will be time later. I moved out when I was 24, a small apartment above a bakery downtown. The walls were thin and the place always smelled like sugar and burnt bread. I thought it was freedom. I remember sitting on the floor the first night because I didn't have furniture yet, just a mattress and 2 boxes. I called my mother. She asked if I had eaten dinner. I told her yes, even though I hadn't. I didn't want her to worry. That was the first small lie. There would be many like it. Not harmful lies, just the quiet kind that slowly build distance between people. My parents would call sometimes, mostly on Sundays. My father didn't talk much on the phone. He'd ask simple questions. How's work? Are you eating enough? Is the apartment warm enough at night? I answered quickly, yes, yes, yes. Then I'd say I had to go. I usually did have something to do. But if I'm honest, sometimes I just wanted the conversation to end. Phone calls felt like interruptions back then. Work became the center of everything. It always does, slowly, without announcing itself. I started at a small marketing office. Nothing glamorous, just long hours at a desk, writing things for companies nobody remembers now. But I was good at it. People noticed. That kind of attention is addictive when you're young. You start to believe your usefulness is the most important thing about you. I stayed late almost every night. My father would sometimes call while I was still at the office. I'd silence the phone and text him later. Busy today. Talk soon. Soon rarely came. My mother used to invite me over for dinner, every few weeks. She'd cook too much food, like mothers do. Chicken, rice, vegetables, sometimes a pie she insisted she didn't bake well, even though it was always perfect. I would go sometimes, but not always. There were always reasons. Deadlines, meetings, friends visiting, or sometimes I was just tired. It's strange what you decide can wait when you believe time is endless. Dinner with your parents starts to feel optional, like something you can always do next week. I remember one evening clearly. I was 31. My father had asked if I could help him fix something in the garage, a shelf that had collapsed. Nothing complicated, just wood and nails. I told him I couldn't that day. I had a presentation the next morning. He said that was fine. Another time, he said. His voice was calm, no disappointment in it. That made it easier to say no. I told him I'd come by the following weekend. I didn't. I forgot about the shelf entirely. The years moved faster after 30. They always do. Friends got married. Some had children. I kept working. Promotions came, raises, a slightly nicer apartment. People congratulated me. My parents seemed proud. My mother would tell relatives about my job as if it meant something larger than it did. I didn't correct her. I liked seeing that pride in her face. But pride is a strange substitute for time. I see that now. My father retired when I was 36. He called to tell me. His voice sounded lighter than usual. He said he was thinking about fishing again, something he hadn't done in years. He asked if I might want to come with him sometime. I said yes. Of course I said yes. But we never set a date. That's the thing about vague promises. They disappear quietly. When I was 39, my mother started forgetting small things. At first it seemed harmless. She would repeat stories during dinner, or ask the same question twice. We laughed about it. "Your mother's getting forgetful," my father would say gently. She would roll her eyes. None of us thought much about it. There was still plenty of time. Then the doctor appointment started. Tests. More tests. I remember sitting in a waiting room that smelled like antiseptic and old magazines. The doctor used words that felt heavy in the air. Memory loss. Degeneration. Progressive. Words that move slowly when you hear them. I nodded as if I understood, but I didn't. Not really. Understanding comes later. Always later. My mother's memory began to thin out like fabric worn too long. She still recognized me at first, but she would forget what we talked about minutes earlier, then hours, then days. My father stayed beside her through all of it. He learned how to cook the meals she used to make. He reminded her where the bathroom was. He repeated the same explanations over and over without raising his voice. I visited more often then, but even as I sat beside her, I realized something painful. Most of our real conversations had already happened years before, and I hadn't paid attention to them when they did. One afternoon she looked at me across the table and asked my father quietly, "Who is she?" He told her I was their daughter. She nodded politely, like someone meeting a neighbour. That moment was the first time I understood something was gone permanently. Not dying, just gone. Like a book you never finished reading that suddenly disappears from the shelf. My father died 2 years later, a heart attack. Quick, they said. That word is supposed to comfort people. Quick. But quick only means there was no time to prepare. I remember standing in his kitchen afterward. The coffee mug was still in the sink, the same kind he'd used every morning for decades. I realized then I couldn't remember the last full conversation we'd had. Not a short phone call, a real conversation. I searched my memory for it. But the years were filled mostly with, "I'm busy" and "we'll talk soon." Soon had quietly turned into never. After the funeral, I helped clear out the garage. That broken shelf was still there. The wood had warped slightly. Dust covered everything. I stood there staring at it for a long time. 39 years of living, and I had never noticed how small his world had been. Not small in importance, small in scale. The hardware store, the house, the garage, the fishing rods in the corner, and us. We were his life. I understood that too late. My mother lives in a care facility now. Some days she recognizes me. Most days she doesn't. When she does, it lasts maybe 5 minutes, sometimes less. We sit together in a quiet room with large windows. She watches birds outside. Occasionally she asks if my parents are coming to visit. I tell her they might later. It feels kinder than explaining. She nods. Then she forgets the question. For a long time, I thought my regret came from not doing enough, not visiting enough, not calling enough. But that's not exactly it. The real regret is simpler. I thought there would always be another ordinary day, another Sunday dinner, another small conversation in the kitchen while coffee cooled on the counter. I treated those moments like background noise, something permanent. But nothing is permanent. Not the voices, not the routines, not the people who quietly build your life around you. When you're young, you believe love will wait patiently while you finish whatever feels urgent. Work, ambition, plans. You assume the people who care about you will always be there afterward. But time is not patient in that way. It moves without asking what you meant to do later, and one day later becomes impossible. I'm 49 now. Some mornings I wake up before the sun, not because I have to, just because sleep ends early these days. I make coffee in a quiet kitchen. Sometimes the smell reminds me of those mornings when my father used to wake up first, back when I was young enough to think life was wide. I wish I had walked into the kitchen more often, just to sit there, just to listen. If you're hearing this, and you still have ordinary days with someone who matters, I won't tell you what to do. I'm not qualified to give instructions. I only know what I didn't understand when I should have. Life doesn't usually take things away in dramatic moments. Most of the time it happens slowly. One postponed visit, one shortened phone call, one small promise you mean to keep later, and then later closes its door, quietly. There isn't a lesson here, at least not one that fixes anything. My father is gone. My mother remembers me only in fragments. The years I spent believing there would always be more time are finished. Nothing changes that. What remains now are the quiet things. Morning coffee, a chair by the window, birds crossing the sky the way they always have, and the understanding that ordinary moments were never ordinary at all. They were the whole thing. I just didn't see it. Not until 39 years had already passed. And by then, most of the people I wanted to share that understanding with were already gone.